Every May, the North Carolina Association of Realtors releases a new set of forms for us to use beginning in July for this next year, and they have just released those forms, and today we are going to be discussing those. For those who haven't met me, my name is Chris Cox. I am the education director here of a small little real estate school here in North Carolina, focusing mainly on continuing education for us professional real estate agents, soon to be adding post-licensing and then pre-licensing down the road. But in addition to that, I also like to just put out educational videos to help my colleagues as they move forward in the business. So today, let's dive into just a quick summary of some of these changes. Not as big as the changes with last year with the settlement changes that needed to be done, but they are still some great changes. I think we're making some great progress in some of these forms, so let's dive right into that. So again, this is just a quick summary. I am going to do a full breakdown a little later, probably in June, as I have a couple in-person sessions. I'm also going to be leading and talking about these changes. So let's talk about these changes again in a summary form. So the first one we're going to talk about is the offer to purchase contract. Great news here. It has been reduced just like the other forms that they have been changing over the last year. The offer to purchase contract 2T has been changed from 17 pages. It has been reduced to 14 pages there. So great news there for all the tree lovers as well as the ones who like to focus on just making it a little simpler. What they did to get that done was they took a lot of those blue and red boxes and reduced those down to just text inside of paragraphs now. So no longer do you see those blue and red call out boxes, which does make it more important for you as real estate professionals to make sure you are explaining in full the terms of the contract there. It's always been our responsibility, but without those call out boxes, it is a little more important for us to do that. They've also done a great job of moving a lot of the stuff that was kind of hidden in the contract. And this is kind of really, honestly, my favorite changes that came with the document here. And that is they moved the seller concessions, any part up to page 1 from page, I want to say it was on page 11 is where that was kind of buried in there. And they've also added the option to make it, instead of a flat dollar amount, a percentage of the purchase price there. So those two changes to that. They've also moved the due diligence date and the settlement date up to that first page as well. So now really most of the key terms in the contract are right there on that first page. So great changes there. Kudos to the forms team for getting those changes done. And then they've added a lot of clarity in a couple different places around that, you know, even if you got a house to sell, that does not make it contingent. And it also adds some additional language in the form to talk about how, you know, there are no appraisal contingencies, inspection contingencies. It's all just part of that due diligence period. So great work there on the 2T to the forms team. Let's go into the next form we're going to talk about is the exclusive right to sell, or Form 101. Not much there because they've been making changes to this over the course of the last year. They've now added up more space for other fees. It used to be just one kind of small line. Now you really can make it, you can add a little bit more language to that other part, whether it's, you know, adding different pricing structures to your listing fees, and really clarifying around, you know, if it's an unrepresented buyer, what's my fee, all these kind of things. Leave those options in there for other. And then they changed the total cost line to optional. So it used to be kind of 7A, 7B, and 7 equaled 7C, which was listing firms compensation, cooperative firm compensation, and then the total of that. They've made that total line optional because they've added a lot of language inside of those other paragraphs to say that, hey, this is in addition to what you're offering to the listing firm in there. So not a ton of changes to that one, but some more clarity around compensation. I still don't feel like we've got that right there. It's still confusing. It still doesn't give the clarity that I'd love to see in there, but again, another step in the right direction. So we're getting there with that. And as you know, many of us said, when we saw these forms or these changes come out with the settlement, it was going to require lots of iterations to get it to the place where the forms were where we hoped they would be. So that's that one. Next one we're going to talk about is the exclusive buyer agency agreement, which is Form 201. Just a couple of small changes to this one too. Again, mainly because they've made these changes in previous forms over the course of the last year. So they added a box to the compensation section that where you can put additional seller or builder compensation if offered by the seller or the builder. So add a little box there. Again, still doesn't, if there's some, some builders are offering a little bit of bonus in dollar form, some offer a different percentage. So still doesn't help with a lot of that on the case-by-case things, but it does add that and doesn't make it part of the buyer's responsibility if it is not offered by the seller. So I like that they've added that, and that's a great step in the right direction. They've also taken out some language that was not really clear around termination and hiring another agent while this contract is in effect, and that not just using another agent doesn't just terminate this contract. So not a ton of changes there with the buyer agency agreement, but again, most of those changes were done. Next one we're going to talk about is a significant overhaul to the seller estimated net sheet. Now, I know a lot of people, like myself, also use a spreadsheet to calculate this all out, which you can find on the Level Up Learning website. I have a copy of mine there. But they've made some changes. They basically just redid this form. They changed the order of it. So though, if you're familiar with the form, we used to kind of have some of those pre-listing expenses at the bottom. They've now moved those to the top to make it chronologically and visually appealing to or understandable to your client. So they've changed the order, so the pre-listing expenses are on the top. They've also broken out the listing firm compensation and the buyer firm compensation, or a cooperative compensation there. And they've also added a line for listing firms to add any admin or brokerage fees that they add to the contract. So those can be line items on there as well. And they've added a line in that section as well for seller concessions to make them a part of the estimated net sheet, so that they maybe understand that that's going to be in the equation. Maybe they're allowing $5,000 for carpets or painting or all sorts of stuff, and they know that ahead of time. You can put that in there as well. And then they've just changed the calculation order to make it more of a sequential mathematical equation there. So some great changes to the estimated net sheet there. Again, start using these forms as of July 1st. They will be available. Just a couple more to get through. They have made some major updates to the agency agreement and amendment, Form 710. They've added specific lines. Used to there was just a couple lines there. If you're familiar with this form, there wasn't a lot of definite lines for specific sections. The extension was kind of there, but it was just, extending it to a different date. Now they have them as check boxes there for extension. Any changes in the firm compensation, any changes in the cooperative compensation can be made there. Any changes in dual agency and allowing dual agency or not allowing dual agency. And then the listing price was always there, but now it has a specific check mark there. And at the very top of the form, they've also added a line for an amendment number or letter, depending on what you use there. So it used to just be, you had to write in Amendment A or on that. So that has been added to the form as well. So some great changes for clarity and allowing us to, specifically update and amend specific parts of our agreements there, or for our agency agreements. So that can be used for all of the listing agreements as well as all the exclusive and non-exclusive buyer agency agreements there. So great job with the changes to the agency agreement amendment. So last one we have here is just some other kind of updates, just some new forms one new form has been created. So there's a new form a lot of us have received if we're working with a buyer, maybe on a new construction house. That new construction company is asking for our buyer agency agreement. That is a contract and a document between the buyer and our firm and us. They didn't really have rights to that entire document. So what the North Carolina Association of Realtors did is they created a new form. It's Form 725, and it is the Statement of Agency Relationships and Compensation, and that can be completed and sent over to a representative who is asking for your agreement to confirm compensation on there. So quick little form there. Many firms I think have adopted their own form on this, but that does give the association a form of that as well. They've also, as I kind of anticipated with some of the changes and how the settlement kind of fell down, they have eliminated Form 770, which is the disclosure of compensation, which is what you use if you received anything different or in addition to what your buyer agency agreement said. And now, since you can't with terms of the settlement, you can't accept anything different than what's on your buyer agency agreement. That form was rendered useless. So they have eliminated that form. And then they made a couple of the changes to match changes to the T2T around really clarifying that the sellers are responsible to unpair their devices, their electronic devices. And then that actually, there's actually, they added language to all the forms that extends beyond the contract terms as well. So they have a responsibility to unpair that, even if it's a month after the closing. That responsibility to unpair any devices that they left as a fixture or a personal item that they left behind, that those need to be unpaired. And now the final thing they have for you guys is that the agreement to amend the due diligence date can now be extended or shortened. In the language in the previous contract, it was just extending the due diligence date. They now added language that doesn't say whether you're extending it or shortening it, it just changes the date to it. So rather than saying specifically that we are extending it, it now says, hey, we're just changing this date here. So that is what we have for the changes for the forms changes for 2025. Hopefully you got some good stuff out of this. If you like this kind of content and you're enjoying it, please let me know in the comments or give me a thumbs up that you're liking these videos. I like to know that you are enjoying the content, the educational content we're putting out, whether it's from this or from the technical standpoint. So appreciate you watching this video. Again, this was just a quick summary for you guys. I'll do a full detail. I'm doing a couple in-person sessions in June throughout North Carolina. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.